familiar with since I was a boy. So the journey with this was to listen to Umberto's version, which he just described, which is an inner world, and the psychology that Umberto, with the other writers, John Colley and Edward Bond, he's, as you will see in the film, or you may have already seen it, it's an interior journey, very much. It's a man who's come home, but not sure that he can be home. Quite a complex challenge of a man with some kind of, he's sort of carved out, he's spiritually eviscerated by what he's been through. So in the course of the film, his journey is towards Penelope. And there's a wonderful scene which we both have always loved in the middle of the film when we meet, but we don't identify ourselves to each other. I think Penelope recognizes him, he knows who she is, but they can't. They're in some terrible, tragic inability to connect because they have both suffered with this distance of time. So the psychology that Umberto defined in this script is very meaningful to me and a wonderful challenge.
Even though it's a common journey to watch a film with the audience, but also it's very individual. And but I think she's a very modern woman. You know, it's even though it's an archetype, you know, but she is not the waiting, submitted wife. She has her own, you know, journey in a sort of desperation, I believe, and facing what it means to have faith and the difficulty to have faith. The patience that women have to have for the, you know, that Penelope has for him to come back is huge, because inside of us everything's huge. And it feels to me, if we can do a sort of a parallel with what's happening in the world now, it's like the feminine side of ourselves has to wish that this need of conquer will change, will transform. So I can take the story of Odysseus as an inside story, the female and the male side of ourselves that needs to reunite, and a part of ourselves that go away from the heart of us to come back home, to come back to the heart. It takes a while to unite finally the feminine and masculine together. So you can read the story in so many levels, and I think that's why this film is very modern. Even though it's a classic, it's even more modern today than it was then at the time, I suppose. This one on my right, but I don't remember. Yeah, I learned the technique actually, but it's a difficult technique because, you know, the woman who taught me, she is doing it every day, and so there's a dexterity that I had to sort of fake, but the camera was very nice with me. You know, they didn't put together my flaws as a weaving maker, but it's fascinating because it's like a meditation. You know, they go into there's a rhythm that comes with it. There's an ancient feeling of, you know, 1,000 years ago, you know, a lot of women were doing it. So it's there's a link somewhere. But I enjoyed it very much, but for a short period of time.
Leading us towards, and I think it was, I remember thinking, he's, as I was trying to explain, kind of eviscerated or kind of emptied by the destruction that he's been responsible for, the killing and other horrendous things he may have been party to. He knows it's some terrible transgression of his humanity. He's come home with a sense that this is his destiny. I think what is a kind of paradox is that when is it right action to use violence to take what you need? So it's a tough one, isn't it? We kind of want him. That isn't one of the appeals of the Odyssey, is we want him to claim his home from these people that in the myth they are malign forces. The suitors are threatening to destroy, take, and usurp what is not theirs. They are forces. You could say, are they? I mean, it's a question: are they forces of darkness? Interestingly, in your Odyssey, Antinous is very well portrayed by Marouin, who gives him a complexity and a depth. But ultimately, they want to take, and so I think it was the challenge, the destruction that you're talking about. He knows, in a way, he has to go back to it. There is some elemental, archetypal pattern of my family, my home, my essence. This unity of feminine, masculine that Juliette is talking about. And I think he knows he has to claim, but he can't, they won't go away. He can't, they will not, they're not peacemakers. And I often go back to the text of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna talks to Arjuna, the warrior prince, who's hesitating to fight, and Krishna says, but you have to go beyond. The bigness, the almighty, the eternal being is bigger than the battle you're frightened of. And I think, in a way, when I remember thinking, once he takes the bow, he goes beyond his hesitancy. He has to go into that zone where you have to go through with an act.
Side and outside is very difficult, and she's dealing with the nightmare of being in that situation, feeling abandoned, having to protect his son, and pretend in a way that everything is going okay in facing the suitors, and having this kind of strength, inner strength, in order to not being raped or not being totally smashed down. And I think through the story, what I found it interesting with her is that she has to use a sort of a cunning way of dealing with the dark sides of humanity, and being more intelligent than the situation. So, like, proposing without saying it with Antinous in order to save her son and save her sanity, and give a little more time to give herself to Antinous is a very, new and risky way of looking at Penelope, who's usually is like a saint who is at home and waiting for the husband to come back. But she's more complex in that situation, in that film. And I find it so fascinating and interesting. But also when she knows the situation, she's angry with Odysseus to not be responsible of what he's supposed to take care of, and the fact that she's proposing the arc, the bow, I find it so interesting that you don't face the devil in front. You face the devil on the oblique, on the side. And that's the way to change a situation, transform a situation that's supposed to crush you down or kill you, for being in your skin. So sharing the story with Rafe was very special, because we've known each other for many years, and probably coming to an age where you see, oh, that could be our last film, is very special. But it just, I don't have a specific moment to share with you, because it felt like every single moment was important. Because that's the way you're weaving your character, is that it has to resonate something real because you're doing films not for yourself. I believe I'm doing films for you, for humanity to participate into the humankind and our evolution somewhere, even though I don't know how it's going to be, felt, but for me the purpose has to be inside of people's heart and minds and lives. So every second is meaningful and has to be full, and yet totally somehow empty. Because then if it's not empty, you cannot receive and make it alive. That's why it's so important to be surrounded by great actors and also a great director that is able to see what you're giving, which is mostly invisible.
Often acting, you are called to play a role, or a destiny or events lead you to play a part, and you find it has a meaning for you which you can't perhaps articulate. As I said, I felt a strong connection to this role and to Umberto, and when Juliette came on board, it felt that there was something quite deep connecting us in these parts. Yes, some roles just speak to you in ways that you can't. It's hard to describe, and I feel it was the case with this part.
And so it was very important to me because seeing the scenery, seeing the trees, feeling the wind, seeing from the mountains to see the sea, and the passion also I could feel, and the anxiety of having to deal with Odysseus, from Umberto, and Rafe to go through, this part, and also oh my God, I'm getting old, I'm sorry. Charlie. Charlie, and it was wonderful because I didn't shoot in Corfu, and I was, of course, frustrated because I wished, of course, I could be there, but that's the way it is. In films, you have to recreate life in different places, but to have spent, that time and being in the studio in Rome afterwards, it was very important to me because I had a point of reference, and because the imagination, we work with the reality of who we are and all the memories we have in our bodies, mind and hearts and everything, but also very much with imagination. So I could continue my feelings with those moments in Corfu, and also I visited all the places I could, all the little monasteries, to have a feeling with the people as well. Yeah, I know it wasn't Ithaca, it was Corfu, but come on, it's very close. And it was very special. Yeah.
Once with Umberto, in fact, and we were discussing the project. Then about 2-3 years ago, I know there are scholars who believe that the topography of Ithaca is accurately described in Homer. I can't comment, except I found Ithaca a very powerful place. And I've travelled in Greece a bit, in the Peloponnese. I think your country is extraordinary in some energy or power that I identify in its islands and its seascape and its mountains. There are some spirits there, I believe, which are very powerful. I feel the same in the west coast of Ireland, in fact. But it was wonderful to feel that we were close to the spirits of your country when we shot the film.
Juliette and Rafe. I mean, most of the time you just say, okay, action, and then you just watch and watch and watch, because it is so extraordinary to watch what they give you, and they give you what you thought you were after, and then they give you something much better and more interesting and more complex than you could ever dream of, and then sometimes you see it on the set, and sometimes you see it in the editing room, and they were right and you were wrong in pushing them in the wrong direction, and it's bliss. You live, when you're making a film, you live for those moments, for those connections that great actors have with what you're trying to do with the text. And it's just wonderful. And when you can go close to them, you know, you've seen the film, and a lot of the film is like this. It
Continuing.
reminds you what Bergman says about the most, you know, the most beautiful thing in the world to look at is the face. And when you have these faces, and when these faces communicate what they do, as they do in this film, I think you're blessed.
Continuing on.
We're all in our different ways looking for our Ithaca, our sense of self. And we're all on a journey, and I think that's why the Odyssey is so powerful. It speaks to everyone, man or woman, about the sense of return, whatever that may be. I think it's a question we all carry inside us. But I feel that on this journey, to have met and sailed in a boat with Umberto and Juliette and the crew, and you know, the result will be what it will be, but the making, the work every day, and the things that Umberto's describing, and the wonderful pleasure of working with Juliette and with the other actors, and you're in it, and you're grateful to have had it.
Being in this journey of being an actor and witnessing the struggles and the needs and the faith you have to have as a director, producer, to have a project to come alive and being as close as possible as, you know, what you wished is, I know how much it is now. I was not aware of it when I started because I was in my journey as an actor and not that probably interested in knowing, because I already had too many things to deal with. But knowing this more now, when I could see Umberto come back to us and meeting inside of him this dream, this need, this passion for this story, how meaningful it was for him. I was really, and we were really moved when he would come back and was meeting his first idea to make a film, and he could see with us that he was realizing it. It was really moving because that's what you wish as an actor, is to it's true, it's really true. Because we know how difficult, you know how difficult it is, and so when we could share that and have you, okay, he'll go home with the wheels, with the little, now it's not wheels anymore, it's reels anymore, it's those little
Hard drives.
hard drives that he can work with and complete this wish, this need. It feels like, okay, we're okay.
Thank you all so much for being here and sharing your experience, your knowledge, your insight. It's been wonderful to have you. Thank you all very, very much. And thank you too for being here.